Subscribe if you're always missing a sixth person. Hey, it's Friendly, and I make straight-to-the-point guides and helpful content. Visit my channel and try one of my step-by-step guides for Destiny 2. At time of filming, all current non-sunset reprised Destiny 2 raids and dungeon guides are available here. For example, Last Wish, Deepstone Crypt, Vault of Glass, and even the Prophecy Dungeon. If these do help you out, share with your clan or your friends. Comment will help you out, leave a like, and subscribe for more straight-to-the-point content. Without further ado, let's get into it. The reprised Crota's End raid in Destiny 2. A lot to go over, so let's get into it. If you're heading into the reprised Crota's End raid, I highly recommend a microphone and being comfortable communicating. If anything, I recommend going into this with friends first. This is a long guide with a lot of information, so I encourage you to rewatch sections as needed. This entire raid requires using something called the Chalice of Light. The whole team will have to interact with this in some way. This is the Chalice of Light. Picking it up begins to charge up this bar. Killing adds, especially as a team, fills the bar up faster. Essentially, you are filling up with the power of light. Once the bar is full, you become engulfed in light with this timer. If you don't do something before this timer runs out, you will die. And that something is handing off the chalice to a teammate. That exchange makes you enlightened. So I'm waiting for my bar to charge, and when it's fully charged and I'm filled with light, my teammate takes the chalice away from me. In that moment, I am granted an enlightened buff that I can use throughout the raid. The diamond symbol indicates who is currently holding the chalice. It'll switch to whoever's holding the chalice currently. To take the chalice away from a teammate, simply interact and you'll see the prompt. To summarize, this exchange of taking away the chalice, once the bar is full, grants that chalice holder who is waiting so patiently an enlightened status. But how do they know when to take the chalice away? Take a look here. I'm waiting to take the chalice away, but there's no on-screen indicator telling me when the chalice holder's bar is full. Sure, you know they're holding the chalice because their face is smoky and there's a giant diamond, but even when you're full, I have the same smoky face. You will have to communicate and tell your team that your bar is full and that you're ready to have the chalice taken away from you. Otherwise, you're just going to stand around and die. Keep your team updated on how much your bar is filled up. Hey, my bar just passed 50%. It's about to reach 75%. I'm on the last bar. It's about to fill up. Okay, 3, 2, 1, now you can take it. This way your teammate can go over to you and take it off of you. Communications are paramount. Shown here, someone took it before my bar was fully filled up, and I looked back to see what happened because I was confused. There are not many indicators, so you really have to communicate. So, when your bar is full and you have the chalice taken away from you, you are granted enlightenment. But what's the big deal about being enlightened? Think of it as a currency that you'll need throughout the raid. Those who are enlightened can build bridges. Enlightened people can light up lanterns. They can pick up special items that only enlightened people can pick up. You can even use it during boss damage phases to expunge and cause an extra bit of damage. There are even walls that only enlightened people can walk through. If you have extra enlightened teammates to use, they can help accelerate certain raid mechanics. Shown here, they can help to accelerate bridge building. You can also be locked out of chalice mechanics. If you use your enlightened currency, you'll be drained of light and locked out of participating in anything chalice related. You're going to have to wait until your drained of light timer runs out before you can pick up the chalice or do anything chalice related. This is because it's forcing the entire team to participate in chalice juggling and exchanging. Another example, I'm drained of light and I can't even take away the chalice to help out in the chalice and enlightenment process. Instead, I'm forced to wait out my timer. Only then will I see the option to take the chalice away. This is why your entire team should be involved and should be comfortable with exchanging the chalice. Or you can die and remove your timer, and then you can participate in the chalice again. Be mindful how you use Enlightened. Later on, you will have to use Enlightened to pass through green walls eventually, but only the correct ones. Don't just waste it on a random green wall. Being Enlightened is a lockout as well. You can't carry more than one Enlightened buff at a time. That would defeat the whole purpose of the raid. I'm locked out of taking the chalice away from teammates or participating in any chalice-related exchanges. In a pinch, you can die to remove your enlightened, and then you can pick up the chalice again. Once you're enlightened, use it or lose it, so help build bridges, help to pick up swords, or help deal extra damage to bosses. This chalice is sitting on a podium, but only some podiums allow you to preserve the chalice and deposit it. Some do not allow you to do that. As shown, there is no option for me to deposit the chalice, whereas this podium allows me to deposit it. Even if your chalice of light bar is full and you're engulfed in light, you can still preserve and deposit the chalice to avoid dying from engulfed in light. Thankfully, which podiums can and cannot don't change in the encounters. The podiums that allow you to preserve, they allow the chalice to be both deposited and reclaimed. Shown here, I reclaim the Chalice. But I could preserve the Chalice, simply because I don't want to charge up my bar and get enlightened. But doing so locks me out. This is to avoid people taking advantage of preserving away the Chalice, because holding the Chalice without any exchange means death, as we all know now. If you die with Chalice, there's still a small chance you can still pick it up where you died if you get revived quickly enough. As shown, I could still pick it up. Otherwise, it's not a big deal, it'll just respawn in its source podium. You can juggle the Chalice between players to avoid fully charging the Chalice of Light bar. Just keep claiming it off of each other before the bar gets to fully charge. Since you never fully charge up the bar, there's nothing for the game to lock you out of. A lot of tedious details here, so take a breath before we get into the raid, and I encourage you to refer back here for Chalice mechanics as you make your way throughout the raid. First up is the Hellmouth. Pick up Chalice in center, perform Chalice Enlighten exchange. Any two teammates will be fine. As we all know, the Chalice holder becomes enlightened after the exchange. Use Enlighten on this plate, it'll flash. This indicates that the bridge is currently building. If anyone else is enlightened, they can use the extra Enlighten on this plate to accelerate the bridge building. Just stay on the plate so that the bridge can continue building and then take the completed bridge downwards. First encounter, Abyss. Abyss is heavy on ad clear and there will be unstoppable ogres near the end. Let's talk about the goal first. We must travel in the dark, going from lantern to lantern. The lanterns will guide us to the end, which is marked by a bridge plate. We need to avoid pendulums, which will nearly one-shot you, and if they don't end up killing you, they'll knock you around the map. There will also be holes that will one-shot you if you aren't careful. Of course, you have a wipe timer as you travel from lantern to lantern, and you're constantly gaining stacks of Weight of Darkness up to times 10. Weight of Darkness forces you to walk slow, but you could use Sworf movement or other abilities like Strand, or being amplified with Oryx subclasses. But honestly, being slow and being bum rushed by ads isn't a big deal with how powerful Guardians are nowadays. As long as you're in this encounter, you have a timer and your stacks of darkness will increase. However, you can refresh this timer and bring your weight down. The way we do that is directly tied to getting through this encounter. We know we'll travel from lamp to lamp, but the path is not clearly lit as it is illustrated here. Instead, it looks like this, where we need to activate a few lamps at a time, lighting our own way through. It would just be too easy if all lamps were already lit. In the end, you'll make it to this orange area with the bridge plate. You'll need to know what an active and inactive lantern look like. Here's what they look like. They aren't too hard to differentiate. Traveling from lantern to lantern, your team should stop at each lantern and everyone should look around and ahead to determine if the next lantern is active or not. Here are a couple of examples. Example, say we stop at this lantern and look ahead. We see that the next lantern is dark, meaning not active. Our job is to activate it. Assume we are in this situation where the next lantern is not active. If so, stay at the current lantern. Do not move forward to that non-active lantern just yet. As a team, look around the area near your current lantern. You want to look for a podium, and as shown, my teammate found the podium and is shooting at it. It looks like this. Well done, you found the podium near your current lantern. As you travel through this encounter, going from lantern to lantern, if the next lantern is not active, that means there's a podium somewhere near your current lantern. So why do we care about these podiums? Because depositing the Chalice of Light into these podiums activates lanterns. In the footage shown, the next lantern, which is straight ahead at the top of the hill, was not active. When I deposit the Chalice, however, it suddenly lights up. You will get this message indicating you did it correctly. Activating the podiums activates lanterns ahead of you, so it might activate these two or maybe the next 4. It's really up to Bungie. The entire team should always be on the lookout if the next lantern is active or not, because that means there's a podium somewhere near your current lantern. You could memorize the positions of the podiums, but check this out. In this spot, there's a podium, and keep note of this hill and this location. However, maybe we wiped, and in another playthrough, I'm at the same spot, but there's no podium. You can see it's the same area with the same hill leading up to the next lantern, meaning the podiums are instance-based. Every time you replay the encounter, it switches up. Shown here in this instance, the podium is actually at the lantern at the top of the hill instead. A quick insert here, we know that podiums activate the next few lanterns relative to your current lantern position. But here's something for you guys to watch out for. We just activated a lantern ahead of us and I'm skipping ahead to see the next podium. Okay, this lantern's clearly not active. Okay, fair, I probably missed a podium back at this lantern. But there's no podium in sight. But then I turn around and I look over to that other lantern, right? And it's all of a sudden magically activated by itself. And to be clear, there's no podium next to this lantern I'm standing next to, and it's not like we deposited the chalice again anywhere else. Here's what we think happened. We deposited chalice, so some lanterns should be active and lit. As I approach this lantern right ahead of me, the next lantern should also be lit up as part of the next set of lanterns. However, it only seemed to light up once I got close to this lantern. Let's take a look at this one more time in slower motion. It activates now. It activated without us depositing chalice or anything else, and it only activated as soon as we got closer to the lantern before it. It might be connection or latency related, but just something to watch out for. And that's why I highly suggest going to each lantern and not skipping any. Overall, you're still activating a few lamps at a time, and each activation may light up the next 2 or the next 4 lamps. Take a breather and rewatch if necessary. More on lamps. Only activated lamps can be enlightened if you have the enlightened buff, whereas non-active lamps have no response and no options. Enlightening lamps will literally make the lamp glow brighter. Take a look here. Enlightening lamps will also refresh your wipe timer. Staying nearby enlightened lamps also brings your weight of darkness down. If you ignore and don't enlighten any lamp, you're not refreshing your timer. Your timer will run out and your team will wipe. So please enlighten lamps and be patient and wait with your team next to the enlightened lamp. I suggest leaving any time below ×5 weight of darkness stacks. But don't wait around too long. The lamp will start to glow orange and it will eventually blow up and kill you. In summary, you're activating a few lanterns at a time and traveling from lantern to lantern. You're activating the lanterns by making use of these podiums. Don't skip any podiums because they're related to the final plate. Shown here, teammate McKellar is going to take the chalice and deposit into the very last podium. Shown here, the chalice is in the last podium. Depositing the chalice into all podiums generates this message. This means you have activated all podiums of light. Podiums as in plural podiums. As shown, this is the end of the encounter, so if you skipped a podium, you would not get this message, and you would not be able to enlighten this plate. And you need to enlighten this plate to build a bridge out of here. It's the same idea as the active and non-active lanterns. This plate simply is not active yet. When you skip a podium, you cannot enlighten that final plate. Take a listen to our mistake and
I'm gonna enlighten the plate.
Yeah, go for it.
Go ahead, take it.
Taking.
Yeah.
Done.
Yep.
Wait, I can't. We need to dunk in another podium, I think.
That means we have to go back to the lit one back here. That means.
And he's right. This lamp is not active, meaning we missed a podium. Is there a podium there?
I'm checking. Yeah, there is a podium.
I'm preserving right here. I preserved at this podium so I wouldn't have to worry about the chalice and being engulfed in light and dying. At least until we figured out the problem. This podium that's at the end of the encounter next to the plate, this is not the one we're talking about. It's not the one we missed. In fact, this particular podium does not influence anything. It's just a spot at the end of the encounter to place your chalice. Once we figured out the problem, we had to take the chalice and run backwards to each lantern until we found the podium that we skipped. Okay, looks like they found it. Once we get there, we can deposit into that skipped podium, and now we get the successful message. A simple strategy is 4 people involved in the chalice enlightening exchange process, and the other 2 on ad clear. Here's an example of the chalice people, and I do recommend going to each lantern and taking your time. So first chalice person, take the chalice to start off the encounter. The very first lantern is always lit, by the way. From this current lit lantern and looking ahead, we can see that the next lantern is not active, meaning there is a podium near this first active and lit lantern. Find it and deposit the chalice. Depositing the chalice into the podium activates the next few lanterns. Having done so, you will get this message. The next few lanterns should activate. Chalice people should perform chalice exchange and enlightenment. Perform these steps at each lantern. Just to remind you, as chalice holder, wait until bar is full. Ask one of the 4 chalice people to take chalice away from you. Notice the diamond symbol move away from me to Saitama. I've now become enlightened. Saitama is the new chalice holder. I enlighten this lantern. It glows bright. Enlightening it refreshes our wipe timer. Now, standing near this lantern will take away our weight of darkness stacks. Using my enlightenment locks me out of any chalice activities, which is precisely why we have 4 people doing this. Moving on, whoever from the chalice team can do so, please reclaim the chalice. Chalice reclaimed. Move to next lantern. Perform these steps. The next 3 lanterns are all active, so just perform these steps at each lantern. Uh-oh, the next lantern is not active. Well, we need to find a podium near this currently active and lit lantern. Deposit chalice into this podium. This will activate the next few lanterns. Just like before, we've received this message saying we did it successfully. Let's assume that the next 4 lanterns are activated now because of that. Don't forget to keep doing Chalice exchange and enlightenment, and don't forget to reclaim the Chalice. So you pick up the Chalice again, go to each of the next lanterns and perform the Chalice exchange and enlightenment and refresh at each lantern. Always look ahead to see if the next lantern is active or not to keep an eye out for podiums. I suggest rewatching any of this if you need to. In general, you're just activating a few lamps at a time and don't skip podiums. Here's some quick tips to try. If you're holding a chalice and all of a sudden someone sees a podium next to you, if you're nearly fully charged already, you might as well become enlightened. Otherwise, if you deposit it before a full charge, you kind of just wasted your time filling up the bar. I strongly suggest going slow and steady, going to each lantern one at a time, and sticking together and being patient. There's nothing wrong to stick together, wait, and sort out the comms. In a pinch, you can preserve at a podium to refresh the wipe timer. But you can only do this one time per podium as a team. Deposited and timer refreshed. Next, teammate Panda will also try to preserve, but nothing happens to the timer. The timer simply continues to count down. Then I decide to try preserving it again, but first I need to wait for my lockout to end. Now I'm free to grab the chalice, I deposit, and nothing happens to the timer. So each podium can be used one time to refresh the timer. The final stand. Once you find yourself climbing up the hill in this orange area, you are very close to the end. There will be a podium that is the final correct podium close by. Deposit chalice and you'll get this message. Make your way to this final orange plate. Continue chalice exchange and enlightenment if needed. If not, deposit it into this final podium next to the plate. Remember, this podium, this specific podium right here next to this plate, it is not involved and has no influence on generating this message. Now whoever is enlightened, go onto the plate and enlighten it to begin bridge building. Remember, you're only able to enlighten it because of this message. Then just stay on the plate and let it build. At this point, you can deposit the chalice and not worry about it anymore. Any extra enlightened teammates can accelerate the bridge building by accelerating enlightenment on the plate. The game will tell you this message when you did it successfully. Pop a well if you're worried, but at worst, there's just unstoppable ogres and maybe a knight or two. Eventually the bridge will be complete, noted by this flame glow, and you can cross the bridge and escape. Keep running into the light and I'll meet you at the next encounter. Second encounter, bridge. This is still an ad clear heavy encounter. Make sure to bring anti-barrier mods, and maybe bring 1 or 2 blinding nades or tractor cannons. It works really well here as you'll see. As always, bring your best ad clear and survival subclasses. 3 main parts. First, enlighten your team. Then get your team to cross the bridge and stay on the other side. Then have a sword fight. Visually, use the chalice to enlighten team. Once the bridge is built, you can cross, but you can only cross with a special item in your hand. Each person will pick up an item and cross the bridge. 5 people will each grab a sword, cross bridge, kill a special enemy, deposit the sword. Your goal is to bring over a total of 5 swords. And yes, everyone on that other side has done this. You can track your progress. Notice the statue on the right lights up. Killing 1 special enemy lights up 1 statue. You will light 5 statues total to finish the encounter. It'll look like this. Swords aren't the only special items you need to bring over, you also have to bring the chalice over and deposit it here. In this run, even though we have 5 active statues, we had no loot, so we had to deposit the chalice. Once we deposited the chalice, we got our loot and completion. The sword fight I mentioned is the final stand. It involves fighting these guys literally with the 5 swords you brought over. Let's go over the lay of the land. Chalice in the middle, and here's the starting side with 2 Annihilator totems and the same 2 totems on the other side as well. Notice there's a glowing plate underneath each totem. More on this soon. A middle bridge building plate that needs enlighten to build the bridge. The same type of plate as the previous encounters when you had to build a bridge. And of course the chalice in the middle. Bridge building and holding the bridge intact so it does not despawn. As before, staying on the middle bridge building plate builds the bridge slowly over time as teammate Panda is showing. But this makes the Annihilator tomes very angry and glow red until they eventually wipe you. However, if you step off the middle bridge building plate, you can effectively calm down those Annihilator totems. Right here, Panda steps off and you can see gradually the totems calming down. But the downside is you stopped the bridge building. Therefore, while Panda is continuing to stay on the middle bridge building plate to continue building the bridge, you'll need 1 person to stand under or near each Annihilator totem, which will end up calming the totems down. You can see the totems gradually calm down, even though we're still on the middle bridge plate building the bridge. So you'll need 3 plate people, 1 on each plate. So here's a good view of 3 people staying on or near their plates at the starting side. On the other side, it's the same thing, 1 person there, one person right here, and of course I'm on the middle plate. Bridge building. The bridge builds in segments, and you'll know if it builds a segment from this sound.
I'll go.
If your bridge despawns, don't worry, just step back onto all 3 plates as shown here, and you'll see a flame glow in the middle plate, indicating rebuild in progress, and the bridge will rebuild in segments. Quick notes on the bridge. If you're holding an item, you can travel across the bridge. So if you pick up a sword, you can cross the bridge. If you took the chalice and you're holding a chalice, you can cross the bridge without any issues. Notice the diamond symbol, meaning that's the chalice holder crossing the bridge. Okay, so what? Well, holding means holding a physical relic item, not a buff. Shown here, I'm enlightened. I try to cross, but I die. Buffs do not count. Okay, so I must hold an item. However, even if you have an item, you really should wait for the bridge to be physically built. Shown here, I have a sword, but I can't walk across the transparent bridge. Just be patient, wait for the bridge to be built. Shown here, holding the chalice is also not a problem. Chalice podiums. We know that some podiums can be used to preserve the chalice. However, this starting chalice podium is not a preserve podium. Notice how there is no option to preserve. The deposit location is on the opposite side, so if you happen to be holding the chalice and you need to deposit it, follow this path to deposit the chalice. Here's the chalice holder running across the bridge. Note the diamond symbol indicating he is the chalice holder. That person should deposit in the podium. A lot of special enemies to keep track of. Infinite barrier champions. Sword bearer knights, when they die, they drop a special sword. Only enlightened people can pick up this special sword. Notice the enlightened option to pick it up. When the sword drops, it will eventually despawn over time. So if you aren't ready to grab a sword just yet, you can always keep the sword bearer alive and kill when ready. Just be mindful because the sword bearer will heal itself over time. Hopefully in this footage, you can see him regenerating health. If you're holding a sword, do not use your class ability. It will force you to drop the sword and you will not be able to pick it back up. However, you are able to use grenades, such as healing grenades. If you're finishing a sword bearer, wait a moment for the sword to drop, then pick it up. Don't grab it right away, because if you're holding the interact button to pick it up while the sword is spawning into the game will use up your enlightened, but not give you the sword. Notice how I am no longer enlightened. The game literally ate my enlightened and did not give me the sword. It's probably because I was interacting and trying to pick up the sword as it was spawning into the game. I was just trying to be too fast. Gatekeeper Knights, immune to all damage except the special sword. So, the sword holder is the only one who can kill it. Both the Gatekeeper and the sword bearer can be suppressed and blinded as shown here. Tractor Cannon also debuffs them, even though the Tractor Cannon shot itself does not do damage. Step by step, split team like this. For each area, decide who will be the plate person. Choose one person to be an MVP chalice delivery person. Usually the other person in the middle area. Here's a map layout, and the goal is to enlighten your team with one person still holding chalice. How do we do this? With one person designated as the chalice delivery person. This person will travel to each teammate, deliver the chalice to each teammate, perform a chalice enlightenment exchange with each teammate, then get each teammate enlightened. Simply going from person to person to person, getting them enlightened. Let's start. Split into teams of 2. Cover each area. Decide for each area who will be plate duty. Magenta smiley face are plate duty people. Middle plate person, grab chalice. Go back to the middle plate. As shown, I'm grabbing the chalice and I go to the middle plate. Perform chalice enlighten exchange with middle person. As shown, I become enlightened. I can enlighten the middle plate to begin the bridge building. Notice the flame glow. As the other middle person, I take the chalice, I let teammate enlighten the plate to build bridge, and I'm simply bringing the chalice over to my teammates. So chalice enlighten exchange, bridge is being built. While that's happening, I am the chalice holder, I go to the right side and I can get both teammates enlightened. As shown, I bring chalice over to teammates here, I tell Mr. Sid to take chalice off of me immediately, then I wait until his bar is full, then I take it off of him. I immediately then tell other teammate Uchiha Time Loss to take the chalice from me, then I wait until his bar is full, then I take it back off of him. So this side is done. Now I have to go to the other side and repeat and get those guys enlightened as well. So I need to go over to the other side and just repeat. I first give the chalice to Bernard. I wait until his bar is ready, then I take it back. He's now enlightened. Next, I give chalice to Absent. Then I wait until his bar is ready, then I take it back. This side is enlightened and done. Back to the middle. I need to be quick because I do not want my own Chalice of Light bar to charge up fully. Once that side is also enlightened, I can now return to the middle to get the middle plate person enlightened. This is the last person to get enlightened. Or I can get myself enlightened. It's your choice. At this point, the bridge should be fully built by now, and the remaining chalice holder in the middle should now go across the bridge and deposit the chalice and choose a plate to stand on. We are done with chalice for now. That person should stay on that side and clear ads and stay alive. Just remember about the chalice. Even if your chalice of light bar is full and you're engulfed in light, you can still preserve and deposit the chalice to avoid dying from engulfed in light. At this point, a sword bearer will spawn. While keeping someone on each plate at all times, kill this sword bearer. Sword will drop. Because everyone on starting side is enlightened, anyone who's not on plate duty, go ahead and pick up the sword. So pick up the sword, go across the bridge, kill the gatekeeper, deposit the sword. The deposit spots will be very clearly marked. Then choose a plate to stand on. Visually, sword holder crosses bridge, finds and kills gatekeeper, deposits sword. The deposit spot will be one of these diamond marked podiums. Take your pick, you can't miss it. Meanwhile, back on the starting side, another sword bearer spawns. Locate it, kill it, sword will drop. Anyone not on plate duty pick it up, cross the bridge, kill the gatekeeper, deposit the sword. You are the third person to cross the bridge. Choose a plate to stand on. What we've just done is the 3 people on the opposite side standing on their plates, they are now holding the bridge in place. Visually, we are on the opposite side now, and there's clearly 1 person per plate, holding the bridge intact. This whole time, the starting side still has all 3 plates covered. Shown here at the starting side, all 3 of us are still waiting for the next step. At this point, the opposite side should tell the starting side people that hey, we have all 3 plates over here on the opposite side covered. We are now holding the bridge intact. You guys over there on the starting side can hop off your plates and enjoy some freedom of movement. So here we are on the opposite side, covering all 3 plates. We tell the starting side, hey, you can now leave your plates, have some freedom, and you can see Nate Money is jumping up in the air, CK is also jumping up in the air, and they are leaving their plates. From the starting side point of view, visually we can see the opposite team fan out to cover their plates. We listen for their call, and now we can hop off the plates without any issue. So now you can freely move around. So the starting side plate people can now hop off their plates. The bridge will now be held intact by the opposite side plate people. So opposite side plate people do not step off those plates. If you're left behind on the starting side, I suggest staying up on these stairs. This makes all the enemies bottleneck and makes it safe to clear ads and wait for sword bearers to appear. Shown here, the starting side is taking cover up near the stairs. Since the starting side are all enlightened and can now move around freely, keep looking for sword bearers. Kill them, get sword, come across bridge, kill gatekeeper, deposit sword. Shown here, teammate Panda kills a sword bearer, picks up the sword, and now he's coming across the bridge. Next, we have Bernard doing the same thing. Once all 3 from the starting side cross over, we don't need the bridge anymore, so we can all leave the plates and move around freely. Shown here, we've all stepped off the plates. Now, someone should go get the chalice from his podium, and the whole team should now become enlightened again. Once you're done, deposit the chalice back in the podium. Because of the number of people, only 5 people will get enlightened. Just to show this, I am reclaiming the chalice. I will go back to my team and perform chalice exchange and get my whole team, or as many people as I can, enlightened. Just don't forget to deposit the chalice back into his podium. Shown here, I'm waiting to see if anyone else needs to get enlightened, and then I deposit it back into the podium. Just remember about the chalice. Even if your chalice of light bar is full and you're engulfed in light, you can still preserve and deposit the chalice to avoid dying from engulfed in light. Once the chalice is deposited into the podium, rejoin your team. This entire time, you will be killing infinitely spawning barrier champions. Stay alive until you see and kill an ogre on left and right side. The moment they both die, the 5 swords you brought over will be made available to pick up. Take note of the diamond symbols appearing. Everyone who is enlightened can now pick up a sword. The swords will be available in these 5 positions. Then, 5 gatekeepers will bum rush you. Kill them all and you are done with bridge encounter. Here's the final stand. Everyone who is enlightened, pick up a sword and charge in. With a well and a debuff, you really only need 1 sword person to kill them all, so it's just your choice. And you can see how you just need 1 person, really. If you were the last person holding chalice and you preserved it away, meaning you are the 1 person without enlightenment and you don't have a sword, just support the team. I popped a well in the middle to help the team damage the gatekeepers. Then you should be all done. Just remember to deposit the chalice if you for some reason still had it. The encounter will not complete if you fail to preserve it. Shown here, we only get our loot and completion once we deposited the chalice. If you don't have a full team, or you managed to cross the bridge but you only brought 4 swords over total, or maybe someone died while trying to kill the gatekeeper but then they were revived, whatever it may be, if your entire team has crossed a bridge and is now on this opposite side, and there's also clearly no more sword bearers spawning back at the starting side, then the game will grant you a sword bearer on this opposite side. Then it's just back to business as usual, and the game will even give you the required gatekeeper to kill. A big word of caution: if you are holding a sword, do not use your class ability. It will drop the sword and you will not be able to pick it up. If you're the last one to cross the bridge, it can get hectic. However, just staying up these stairs will keep you alive. It also makes ad clear and spotting sword bearers easy because they all bottleneck around here. Next up is a mini encounter. There is still a chalice for enlightenment. As you progress, take note of these green walls. You need to be enlightened to go through these green walls. These walls will be critical in the next real encounter. This mini encounter is just preparing you for it. Continue performing Chalice Enlightenment exchange. Once that person is enlightened, have that person walk through the green wall and kill the Shrieker. This will remove the green wall behind you and let your team pass and join you. But there is another green wall ahead of you, so perform Chalice Enlightenment exchange one more time. The resulting enlightened person go through the green wall and kill the Shrieker. Whoever is a Chalice holder must be quick and deposit Chalice into this podium. You only have a limited amount of time to do so, and I believe it has to do with the slipping opportunity timer. Not 100% sure, but anyways, go grab your secret chest loot. When you're ready, drop down into the hole below. One last note, be mindful of the green wall mechanic. If you're enlightened, you can mindlessly walk through any green wall if you're not careful, especially the wrong green wall. As we've discussed, using your enlightenment on a green wall locks you out of any Chalice activity. So be aware of which green walls you're walking through. The Deathsinger. I strongly suggest one divinity, Thunderlord or equivalent machine gun, even double slugs, Leviathan's breath, but I personally like Merciless. Recommended exotics to reload weapons quickly. Well, Radiance Warlocks, please abuse Rain of Fire. And the usual burst damage supers. On average, this is a 2 to 3 DPS phase boss. This is a 2-step encounter. We need to access a Chalice first to get enlightened, of course, then we can focus on getting to DPS. Let's gain access to the Chalice. The boss is a wizard type, and we first need to take down her shield. As you rush out of the tunnel, try to spread out evenly with 3 going left and 3 going right. Inside this structure, you'll soon see that the left and right sides are connected. In any case, as you leave the starting area, 3 should turn to the right, and 3 should turn to the left. While killing ads, of course. No matter which way you go, just run up the set of stairs and into your respective side room, as shown here. Continue to kill ads, especially the Blistered Knights, and the Shrieker in your room will eventually wake up. Kill it, and once both sides' Shriekers are both dead, these green walls will disappear. As shown here, we're waiting on the other side's Shrieker to wake up. There it is, it woke up, and the other side team will kill it. Once both Shriekers are dead, the green walls in front of us disappear, granting us access to the Chalice. Now, time to remove the boss's shield to damage her. Grab Chalice and begin Chalice Enlightenment exchange, as usual. For this encounter, if you have the Chalice, I suggest at this point that your whole team climb up to the balcony as shown here, and hang out together, and get as many people enlightened as you can. At minimum, you need to get 3 people enlightened. Once you have 3 people enlightened, deposit the Chalice so you're not worrying about it. However, this is not a preserved podium. Marked by the diamond symbol, Marasov's boy toy is downstairs with the Chalice, and that's because the preserved podium is downstairs. It was actually right in front of you where you came out at the start of the encounter. Take note that you can pick up or deposit the Chalice at this podium. Here's an example of depositing the Chalice at this podium. Remember, this podium is not a preserved podium. There is no option to deposit. Just remember about the Chalice. Even if your Chalice of light bar is full and you're engulfed in light, you can still preserve and deposit the Chalice to avoid dying from engulfed in light. Back to the balcony. Get as many people enlightened. The minimum 3 enlightened will be assigned as wizard killers. 3 wizards to kill total. Each of you will go and kill a wizard. These 3 wizards may be in the following locations. These 3 rooms on the balcony. Or they might be in these 2 rooms in the left tower, and these 2 rooms on the right tower. Here's a better look at the 2 left tower rooms. Here's a better look at the 2 right tower rooms. Notice how these rooms all have a green wall? You will use your enlightenment to pass through to kill the wizard. Here's the catch. Each room might have a wizard, or it just might have a Shrieker in there. So, we need scouts who can literally peek into each room to check if it's a wizard or if it's a Shrieker in there. Anyone can scout and check the rooms, but generally the first person who is enlightened should immediately head out and scout the rooms. For the rest of the team, deposit the Chalice once you have finished enlightening people. Then you can either stay in the middle at clearing, or you can hang out and relax on the balcony. Just be ready to hop down when it's time for DPS. Here's a follow along. Again, everyone can help scout, but you really only need one person. Once I'm enlightened, I like to jump up on the balcony and check the balcony rooms first, because they are easy and closest to us. So I'm going to check this room. Well, that's a shrieker. Not going to be in there. Let's check this room. Okay, that's definitely a wizard. Hiding a bit, but definitely a wizard. Let's check these left tower rooms, top and bottom. Okay, I can just barely make out that that's a wizard's arm right there. Okay, now let's hop down, check this bottom room. Try not to die. And I can I can make out that that's the Shrieker's spike. Okay, now let's run over to the right side tower, top and bottom rooms. Now these two rooms will be difficult to determine. Visually, this middle pillar is blocking your vision. You just can't make out if anyone's arm is sticking out or not. But there is a trick to this that I'll explain soon. In any case, you're checking all the rooms for 3 wizards. Is it a Shrieker? Is it going to be a wizard? Is it going to be another Shrieker? Is it going to be a wizard? You just need to find 3 total wizards. A lot of times, they are hiding, or it's just difficult to determine, and you're just not sure. If they're hiding or you're unsure, I repeat, you do not need Wish Under. You do not need Wish Under. Now, get as close to the walls as you can, but do not accidentally pass through the green wall. Monitor your radar. Shriekers are coded as vehicles, which in Destiny 2 appear as red circles. These red circles even have directionality, indicating if they are above you or below you. I see 2 red circles, meaning there are 2 Shriekers here. One above me and one below me. If you see a red circle, there's a Shrieker. Make sure to check directionality to see where it is, above or below. Taking a look at my radar here, this means there's a Shrieker below me. But hold on, in this same area, according to this same radar and using the process of elimination, this means there's a wizard above me, since there's no second red circle with an up arrow. Just be careful though. When checking the rooms, you may need to get really close to the green wall. Just don't accidentally walk in if you aren't ready to do so. Remember, if you accidentally walk through, it uses up your enlightenment, and you're locked out of all Chalice activities for a little while. Callouts can be contentious, so I'll just say what we have used. These are balcony left, middle, and right, depending on which direction you're looking at. It's always relative to which direction you're looking at. These are top left and bottom left. These are top right and bottom right. Here are better looks at top and bottom left, and here are better looks for top and bottom right. Let's get to DPS. Found 3 wizards, 3 enlightened wizard killers. Pick a room, split up, and wait outside each wizard room. As shown, we are all waiting next to our correct rooms. Give a countdown, then all 3 of you go inside and kill the wizard. The moment one wizard is killed, the boss begins her wipe timer, known as Dark Liturgy. This is all the time you have to kill the rest of the wizards if you haven't already, and then to run to your team and do DPS. Notice how my wizard is still alive, but the wipe timer already started? That means someone killed the first wizard already, causing the boss to start her wipe timer. You could go into the room before your other wizard killer buddies like Linwald here and weaken the wizard while you wait for Oroyson to travel to his room. Since the timer doesn't start until the first wizard dies, you could weaken your wizard in preparation. However, if you take too long, the boss will start the wipe timer regardless. See how the timer started even though none of us had gone into the rooms? DPS. Once your wizard is dead, leave your room. Once all 3 wizards are dead, the boss's shield will drop. Everyone meet in this middle center area. Pop well, get div on her, and then expunge her if you have extra enlightenment for extra damage. She will strafe a lot, just be careful. Rinse and repeat. If you need a second DPS phase, you must go and find 4 wizards now. For a third DPS phase, you must go and find 5 wizards. In any case, after DPS, drop down and reclaim the Chalice, rinse and repeat the Chalice exchange at the balcony, and then continue the wizard scouting for 4 wizards and 5 wizards if necessary. Kill all the required wizards, then meet the rest of your team in the central middle area again, pop well, and go to town on her. She does like to strafe a lot, which is irritating, so keep aiming for the divinity bubble, and hopefully she'll end up on top of you, and you can unload everything you got on her. Even in this close space, she's still strafing. In any case, she's not very tanky, you'll be fine with a few DPS phases, and I'll meet you for Crota. Final encounter, Crota. The more well warlocks, the better, and I highly suggest running healing grenades. I'll explain why later. The usual supers, and the current damage method is to debuff with tractor cannon and spam sword light swing attacks. Any sword with these perks will be fine, especially relentless strikes. Lament is commonly requested, but I only suggest it if you can perfectly nail the combo. Getting to DPS requires getting Enlightened, spawning the sword bearers, using Enlightenment to pick up swords, using the swords to bring down Crota's shield, and then doing DPS, all before this giant ball in the sky wipes us. If you are assigned as a sword holder, remember, swords will despawn if you do not go and pick it up quickly. Do not activate your class ability if you are holding a sword. This will force you to drop the sword and you will not be able to pick it back up. You have to go and get re-enlightened and get another sword. However, while holding a sword, you can throw grenades. This comes in handy as you charge at Crota because you can throw a healing grenade for you and the other sword holder to heal as Crota hits you. When you kill a sword bearer, be careful when you go to pick up the sword. Remember, if you're finishing a sword bearer, wait a moment for the sword to drop. Then pick it up. Don't grab it right away. Because if you're holding the interact button to pick it up while the sword is spawning into the game will use up your enlighten but not give you the sword. Notice how I am no longer enlightened. The game literally ate my enlightened and did not give me the sword. It's probably because I was interacting and trying to pick up the sword as it was spawning into the game. I was just trying to be too fast. We're still in the same room. In the bottom pit area, you will end up fighting thralls. Later on, ogres will appear, and then after that, wizards that infinitely spawn as they die. The sword bearer also spawns at this door. There's a minor twist to the Chalice in this encounter. It's the same exchange enlightenment process, but now you can only transfer the Chalice between teammates in these puddles of light. I guess something to do with the presence of Crota and the power of evil and darkness. Example, I'm standing next to teammate Little G13 right here, and clearly you can see I have no option to claim the Chalice away from him. That is until we both jump up and we both stand in the puddle of light. Now I have the option to take it away from him. There is only one puddle of light active at a time, which allows you one Chalice exchange at a time. Then the puddle of light will switch location. Example, shown here I exchange with teammate in that puddle, and then once done, the puddle of light disappears and then it reappears down here. Unless I just haven't seen a secret location, there are 5 set puddle of light locations. 2 located here, top left, top right, 1 down here in the middle, so here's where that middle one is located. Then the last 2, 1 puddle in front of each of these pillars. Here's a better look at each of those puddles in front of the pillars. These puddles of light are dangerous because you're exposed and vulnerable to attack. Shown here, we almost die exchanging the Chalice here because Crota almost always aggroes onto puddles of light. I recommend hiding like Little G13 and I are doing right here, so just hide before meeting up in the puddle of light. Or you can throw down a healing grenade. Or hopefully your teammates can throw a healing grenade for you. If you're in danger, I suggest just bailing out until it's safe. Do your best to assess the situation and go for it if Crota is not looking. Otherwise, if you're in a pinch, the podium to preserve the Chalice is still down here in the same spot. So if you need to, just go ahead and deposit it safely and someone else can reclaim it and continue the Chalice Enlightenment exchange process. Time for the rolls. 2 people on ad clear the whole time. Best to have each Guardian cover one side of the map each. Ad clear, rinse and repeat the following. A pair of Boomer Knight brothers will spawn in the left and the right towers. Kill them all. Killing all Boomer Knights, not just 3, not just 2, not just 1, will cause 2 ogres and 1 sword bearer to spawn in the middle as shown here. Kill both ogres. This causes 2 wizards to spawn as shown here. These wizards are special because they will keep respawning. These wizards will continue to respawn until a damage phase is finished. They will even hang around during DPS as well. Notice the wizard blasts on the right hand side. Once a DPS phase has concluded, you can safely kill any remaining wizards and they will not come back until the next set of ogres are spawned and then killed. Notice when this wizard dies, there is no instant respawn of a new wizard like we saw before. See how there is no wizard anymore. In the meantime, you can keep the sword bearer weak until the team is ready with enlightenment and then kill and pick up the sword. Just be mindful because the sword bearer will heal itself over time. Hopefully in this footage you can see him regenerating health. Killing wizards will not spawn Boomer Knights. The Boomer Knights simply respawn and continue to respawn on their own internal timers. Notice how this wizard is still alive, but there are clearly Boomer Knights respawning on their own. Notice how the Boomer Knights are still shooting at us from their towers even during DPS phases. Ad clear team, you are really important because you are a sword bearer generating factory. Follow this protocol and repeat as necessary. Kill all 4 Boomer Knights. This will trigger 2 Ogres to spawn along with a Sword Bearer. As shown, we kill all Boomer Knights, assuming the other ad clear killed Boomer Knights on other side. Then in the center pit, 2 Ogres jump out along with a Sword Bearer. Kill the Ogres. This triggers the infinitely respawning wizards, which will continue to respawn at least until a DPS phase is over. Eventually, Boomer Knights will respawn on their own internal timer, then repeat as necessary. Remember, you are simply preparing the sword for the rest of the team to use. Keep this cycle going to generate more sword bearers and swords as needed. Sometimes you might go so fast that you end up having multiple swords available. Remember, if your team is not ready to pick up swords just yet, you can always keep the sword bearer alive until you're ready. Just be mindful because the sword bearer will heal itself over time. Hopefully in this footage you can see him regenerating health. Everyone else will be on Chalice Enlightened exchange duty. We need at least 3 people enlightened, with the last person depositing the chalice away so we will not need to worry about it. The podium to preserve is in the same spot down here. Out of the 3 enlightened people, 2 will hold swords and smack Crota with the swords. Shown here, Davos and myself are sword bearers. We are waiting for the rest of the team to gather before we charge in and smack Crota. These swords are the only weapons and damage that will take down his shield. Yes, you have infinite ammo to kill ads, but not for Crota. You only get a few swipes at Crota before it disappears from your hands. A better view, here I'm doing 1 heavy attack. Then I can do 1 more heavy attack. And then the sword is going to disappear right here. It switches me back to my guns. You should be able to do this combo before the sword disappears. Using this combo with 2 swords while waiting for the tractor cannon before you start hitting Crota will be enough to take down his shield. This is why tractor cannon is critical, but others like to use 3 swords to be safe. So, in general, 2 to 3 swords will be enough. Crota can kill you, so as a sword bearer, try to throw a healing grenade before charging in. The final enlightened person is the Oversoul shooter. You are primarily a support person. Therefore, you really should run tractor cannon or some equivalent strong debuff, but tractor cannon is best suited for this purpose. Also, grab a fusion rifle and I'll explain why momentarily. Your job begins with being involved in taking down Crota's shield. You should get ready to debuff Crota with tractor cannon so that the 2 sword bearers can deal more damage. If you have a Well of Radiance, pop it for safety and extra damage. While you're damaging Crota during this DPS, your primary purpose is to damage with whatever you have, and while doing so, monitor this timer. And before it runs out, stop what you're doing, turn around, and shoot the Oversoul, which is the giant orb in the sky, before it wipes us. 2 fusion rifle shots will be enough. You can only damage the Oversoul if you're enlightened. Notice how I used my enlightenment to shoot the Oversoul, and now I am drained of light. If you prematurely shoot the Oversoul on accident, then he'll regain his shield and the DPS phase will stop. You do not want that to happen. Apparently, shown here, one of my fusion rifle shots went through Crota, and it hit the Oversoul behind him in the sky. If you do not shoot the Oversoul in time, the team will wipe, so pay attention to that Oversoul timer. Here's another look. Keep an eye on Boboy right here. He has stopped doing DPS and is going to shoot the Oversoul. That is exactly what you should be doing as an Oversoul person. Getting to DPS. Everyone step on the center ring to start. Crota will appear. Make your way out of this area and into the main room. Chalice team, pick up Chalice in the middle and begin Chalice Enlightening exchange. Remember to use the puddles of light to exchange the Chalice. Remember, every time you complete an exchange in a puddle of light, look out for where the next puddle of light will be. For example, the puddle of light moved down here to the middle. Once you have 3 people enlightened, last person holding the chalice, please deposit the chalice down here as always. We don't want to worry about it. Meanwhile, AdClear should be pumping out sword bearers by following this protocol that we went over earlier. Kill all boomers, this spawns ogres and sword bearer. Once the ogres and sword bearer spawn, kill the ogres to trigger the wizards to spawn. Keep fighting the wizards and eventually the boomers will come back on their own internal timer. Rinse and repeat. Try to be aware if the Chalice team is ready or not to pick up a sword. That way, you can either kill a sword bearer right away or keep the sword bearer alive until the Chalice team is ready. Remember, these swords will disappear if no one picks them up, so don't waste the sword bearers if you can avoid doing so. Just be mindful that these sword bearers will heal on their own. Chalice team, you should now have 3 enlightened people, and the last person to have Chalice should have deposited the Chalice there. Out of the 3 enlightened people, 2 sword bearers, go and get your swords. Remember to let the swords spawn fully. Wait a moment and then pick it up. Don't pick it up too quickly. We've already shown before that picking up too quickly can make the game use up your enlightenment but not give you the sword. See how the sword is still floating there? Please do not use your class ability. You will lose your sword. And that means we have to spawn sword bearers again and kill them for their swords. While the Oversoul person should be getting ready to debuff Crota, sword bearers could hide up here until ready for DPS. DPS. Alert your entire team that DPS will be starting. We like to all meet back at the spawn and rally flag area because there's plenty of space, so try to bait Crota over here. Sword bearers, coordinate with the tractor cannon person and charge in once Crota is debuffed. Maybe throw a healing grenade for good measure. The tractor cannon doesn't have any damage numbers, but it will still debuff him, even though it says immune. From the Oversoul person point of view, I creep along, I debuff him, and then I pop well for safety and damage. In slow motion, we charge in as sword bearers, tractor cannon debuffs Crota, notice the purple glow, and then use the combo to take down his shield. Once his shield is taken down, switch to your regular sword, and then keep hacking away at him. Pop Well of Radiances as you need, keep hacking and debuffing him. For the combo in slow motion, here's a light swing, here's a heavy swing, I spam super button, then I immediately hit heavy swing again. So light swing, heavy swing, spam super, and then heavy swing again. Just don't stop swinging your sword. Meanwhile, as the Oversoul person, keep an eye on the Oversoul timer. When close to 0, stop damaging, turn around, and shoot the Oversoul. Again, take a look at what Boboi's doing. He's leaving DPS to shoot the Oversoul. And again, don't accidentally shoot the Oversoul like I did here. It is chaotic during DPS. Crota tends to destroy the Well of Radiance sword, so it removes the well. So having multiple warlocks popping their Well of Radiance is really nice. His swings also push you away from your Well of Radiance, so just try to time and position your Well of Radiance. Throwing a healing grenade into the chaos is also very helpful. If anyone on the team has extra enlightenment, they can expunge on Crota to deal extra damage. It's a decent amount of damage, it's a tiny little chunk, and it might just help in final stand. I mean, you might as well use it or lose it. If you're the Oversoul person, just don't accidentally use it to expunge him. Deal as much damage as you can, then the Chalice team, hop back down to collect the Chalice from the podium, and then rinse and repeat. Meet up in the Puddles of Light, perform Chalice Enlightenment exchange, and continue on. Same thing for the ad cleared people, rinse and repeat. Kill all the boomers, kill all the ogres, kill the sword bearer so that the Chalice team sword holders can grab them. Don't forget about the wizards. Enlightened sword holders, pick up your swords. Make sure the Chalice is preserved in its podium. We don't want to be worrying about it. Everyone meet back at the center, tractor cannon debuff, and then go to town on him. When you reach final stand, stand back a bit because he will stomp the ground, then keep lighting him up. You should have plenty of time on the Oversoul, so just keep hacking away at him. As we end, some final notes. Crota is extremely fast, so if you ever feel threatened before DPS, you can make your way in here, into where the spawn rally flag area was, and this makes sense because this is where DPS will take place anyways. This way, you're already in position to do DPS. If you're ready for DPS with all the swords, the Oversoul person, the deposited Chalice, try leaving one Boomer Knight alive. That way, you stop the cycle of ads spawning, like the ogres. The ogres won't spawn this way. That way, nothing else annoys you during DPS. Shown here, it's just Crota and one Boomer Knight on the left shooting at us, everything else silent. Even when the timer is flashing 0 seconds on the Oversoul timer, keep attacking Crota. There's still a good chance that you'll kill him even after he summons the Oversoul to wipe you. Here, we actually did it. Never stop dealing damage. And that is the Crota's End raid in Destiny 2. If you are still here, then that's awesome, because I did not start out wanting to make this a long video. Put it this way, I'll be surprised if people stick around for the full 1 hour video. I strongly suggest anyone who's watching this to skip around to each section and rewatch as needed. And I'm curious if this longer format works better or not. Is there too much information? Is there a better way to explain some of the raid nuances? If this helped or if it didn't, leave your feedback below. If this helped you, your team, or your friends, leave a like, subscribe for more straight to the point content, and remember to take care of yourselves out there.